I saw 3 ships come sailing in on Christmas Day, on Christmas Day. I saw 3 ships come sailing in on Christmas Day in the morning. And who was in those ships, all 3, on Christmas Day, on Christmas Day? Who was in those ships, all 3, on Christmas Day in the morning? Joseph and his fair lady on Christmas Day, on Christmas Day. Joseph and his fair lady on Christmas Day in the morning. He did whistle and she did sing on Christmas Day, on Christmas Day. He did whistle and she did sing on Christmas Day in the morning. And all the bells on earth did ring on Christmas Day, on Christmas Day. All the bells on earth did ring on Christmas Day in the morning. The joy that our Saviour he was born on Christmas Day, on Christmas Day. The joy that our Saviour he was born on Christmas Day in the morning. Come down tomorrow night, and mind, don't leave thy fiddle bag behind. We'll shake a lag and drink a cup of ale to keep wold Christmas up.
And let thy sister take thy arm. The walk won't do her any harm. There's no dirt now to spoil her frock, for 'tis a Vrost so hard's a rock.
You won't see any stranger's face, but only neighbours of the place, and Stow and Coombe and 2 or 3 from uncles up at Rookery.
And thou wilt find a pretty face, a pair of eyes as black as sloes, the prettiest ones in all the place. I'm sure I needn't tell 'ee whose.
We got a backbron, 3 girt locks as much as 3 of us can car. We'll put 'em up with the dogs, and make a Vire to the bar.
And everyone shall tell his tale, and everyone shall sing his song, and everyone shall drink his ale to love and friendship all night long.
We'll snap the tongs, we'll have a ball, we'll shake the house, we'll raise the roof, we'll romp and make the maidens squall a catching 'em at blind man's buff.
So come tomorrow night, and mind, don't leave thy fiddle bag behind. We'll shake a lag and drink a cup of ale to keep wold Christmas up. Merry Christmas!
Yes, happy Christmas one and all from the William Barnes Society. Brian Caddy here, and Tim Laycock's with me again to introduce a wintry selection of Christmas poems by William Barnes. For several years now, our Christmas party at the Dorford Centre has been a very popular and eagerly anticipated event.
Will be again, Brian. But we couldn't let the year go by without sharing some of these lovely Christmas poems with you, and also some favourite Christmas songs and carols. Once again, we're very grateful to Andy Worth and Keep 106 for recording the poems, and to Mark North for providing the lovely images that accompany them.
What better subject to start than with the weather? Winters in William Barnes's time were proper frosty and snowy affairs, so here's the Frost from Barbara Whillock to set the scene, and Slidèn from Rod Drew to get the blood racing and warming up the fingertips.
The Frost. Come up one we tonight, athwart the veil of Vrost of white, where frosty shade lie below the winter ricks a-tipped wi' snow, and lively birds wi' wagging tails to hop upon the icy rails, and rhyme to whiten all the tops of bush and tree in hedge and copse, and winds be cutting keen. Come, maidens, come, the grounds of Vrost too hard tonight to spoil your claws. You got no poles to waddle drew, nor clay a-pulling off your shoe, and we can trig 'ee up at the side to keep 'ee up if you slide. So, while there's neither wet nor mud's the time to run and warm your blood, though winds be cutting keen. For young men's hearts and maidens' eyes don't freeze below the coldest skies, while they in twice a keen a blast can wag their brisk limbs twice so fast. Though firelight, a flickering red, drew frosty window panes to spread from wall to wall, from hearth to door, for we to go and sit afore. Now winds be cutting keen.
Slidèn, when wind were keen, where ivy green did closely rind around woke tree rind, and ice shone bright, and meads were white with thin spread snow, then on the pond, a spreadin' wide, we boys did sweep along the slide, a striking on in merry row. There, ruddy-faced, in busy haste, we all did wag a spankin' lag to win good speed, when we straight-kneed, we 4 right toes, should shoot along the slippery track, we grindin' sound a-gettin' slack, the slower went our clumpin' shoes. For some slow chap did take mishap, as he did feel his hinder heel a hair thump with some big lump of foot and shoe. Down fell the foremost wi' a squall, and down the next went wi' a sprawl, and down went all the laughing crew. As to and fro in merry row, we all went round on ice, on ground. The maidens nigh, a-standing shy, did see us slide, and in their aprons small did fold their little hands a-got red cold, or slide on ice of 2 feet wide. By leafless copse and bare tree tops, and sun's low beams, and ice-bound streams, and frost-bound mill a-standing still, come wind, blow on, and gie the boys this Christmas tide the glittering ice to make us slide, as we had our slide, years agone.
Off to the big house now to sing some carols. William Barnes was a welcome visitor at Herrenston and wrote this wonderfully colourful description of Christmas festivities, presumably in the 1850s or 1860s.
We're joined by Sue Worth from Dorchester, and the poem includes one of the Monkton carols called The Shepherd's Amazed, sung and played by the Ridgeway Singers and Band, who all live in Dorset. Herrenston. So then the lady and the squire at Christmas gathered Gert and small, for meth afore their roaring fire, and round their board we in the hall. And there in glittering rows between the round-rimmed plates our knives did sheen, we frothy ale and cup and can for maid and man at Herrenston.
And there the joints of beef did stand like cliffs o' rock in goodly row, where one mid-quarry till his hand did tire and make but little show. And after we'd a-took our seat, and grace had been a-said for meat, we sat to work and so begun our feast and fun at Herrenston.
And mothers there, beside the boards wi' little children in their laps, did stoop, wi' loving looks and words, and feed 'em up wi' bits and draps. And smiling husbands went in quest of what their wives did like the best. And you'd a zeed a happy sight that merry night at Herrenston.
And then the band, wi' each his leaf and notes above us at the side, played up the praise of England's beef and filled our hearts wi' English pride. And leafy chains of garlands hung wi' dazzling stripes of flags that swung above us in a blaze of light that happy night at Herrenston.
And then the clerk of o'er the Vire begun to lead wi' smiling face a carol with a Monkton choir that rung through all the crowded place. And dins of words and laughter broke in merry peals through clouds of smoke. for hardly were the ones that spoke but passed a joke at Herrenston.
Then man and maid stood up by twos in rows, drew passage out a door, and gaily beat wi' nimble shoes a dance upon the stwunnon floor. But who is worthy for to tell if she that then did bear the bell were one a Monkton, or a Came, or some sweet name of Herrenston?
So peace betide the Girt folks' land, when they can stoop wi' kindly smile, and take a poor man by the hand, and cheerin' in his daily toil. And oh, mid he that's fur above the highest year reward their love, and gie their happy souls drew grace, a higher place than Herrenston.
The shepherds amazing, the angel behold, declare the glad tidings of the morn. The time is fulfilled that the prophets foretold, and Christ your Redeemer, Christ your Redeemer is born. All glory and honor to God the Creator, who came from His glory on high. In humble submission took on Him our nature, that we might partake of His joy, of His joy. That we might partake of His joy. Behold, in a manger the Lord He is laid. I come the glad tidings to bring. Go seeking, ye shepherds, and be not afraid. He is the Redeemer, is the Redeemer and King. All glory and honor to God our Creator, who came from His glory on high. In humble submission took on Him our nature, that we might partake of His joy, of His joy. That we might partake of His joy. In Bethlehem city the prophets agree, a virgin should bring forth a son. Go haste to the stall, ye shepherds, and see Him, for as it was said, it is done. All glory and honor to God our Creator, who came from His glory on high. In humble submission took on Him our nature, that we might partake of His joy, of His joy. That we might partake of His joy. The shepherds obeyed, and they did espy the angels most sweetly did sing. Let us join their song to the great God on high, for sending our Saviour, and King. All glory and honor to God our Creator, who came from His glory on high. In humble submission took on Him our nature, that we might partake of His joy, of His joy. That we might partake of His joy.
Now we're going right into the heart of the Blackmore Vale for two of Barnes's best-loved poems. Lydlinch Bells, read here by Ethel Gumbleton in 1978, is a wonderfully musical evocation of bell ringing on a cold winter's evening.
When skies were pale wi' twinkling stars, and whistling air a rising keen,
and birds did leave the icy bars to wind in woods their mossy screen, when frozen grass, so white's a sheet, did scrunchy sharp below our feet, and water that did sparkle red at sunset were a frozen dead. The ringers then did spend an hour a ringing changes up in tower, for Lydlinch bells be good for sound, and liked by all the neighbours round. And while along the leafless boughs a rustling hedges winds did pass, and orts of a left be cows did rustle on the frozen grass, and maidens' pails wi' all their work a-done did hang upon their work, and they afore the flaming brand did chick their needlework in hand. The men did cheer their heart an hour a ringing changes up in tower, for Lydlinch bells be good for sound, and liked be all the neighbours round. Their sons did pull the bells that rung their mothers' wedding peals afore, the while their fathers led 'em young and blushing from the church's door, and still did cheem wi' happy sound as time did bring the Sundays round, and call 'em to the holy place for heavenly gifts of peace and grace. And folk did come a-streaming slow along below the trees in row, while they in merry peals did sound the bells for all the neighbours round. And when the bells wi' changing peal did smite their own folks' winder panes, their softened sound did often steal wi' west winds through the Bagber lanes, or as the wind did shift mid go where woody stock do nestle low, or where the rising moon did light the walls of Thornhill on the height. And so, whatever time mid bring to mek their 5 clear voices sing, still Lydlinch bells were good for sound, and liked be all the neighbours round.
And then indoors, huddled round the fire to keep out the cold, we find 2 old villagers grumbling about progress. Things are never quite as good as they used to be, are they?
No.
The settle and the Girt wood fire.
Ah, neighbour John. Since I and you were youngsters, everything is new. My father's fires were all o' logs of cleftwood, down upon the dogs below our clavvy, high and broad enough to take a carton load, where big and little all zopped down at both sides, and before, all round. When I zot among 'em, I could see all up again the sky through chimney, where our folk did hitch the salt box and the bacon flitch, and watch the smoke on out of fire and up and out of ton and higher. And there were bacon up on rack, plates and dishes on the tack, and round the walls were herbs a-stowed in pepern bags and blathers blowed. And just above the clavvy board were father's spurs and gun and sword. And there were then our greatest pride, the settle by the fireside. Ah, gie me, if I were a squire, the settle and the Girt wood fire.
But they've a walled up now wi' bricks the fireplace for dogs and sticks.
Yeah.
And only left a little hole to take a little grate of coals, a small that only 2s or 3s can just push in and warm their knees.
Right.
And then the carpets they'd use bain't fit to tread wi' our shoes.
Nope.
Chairs and couches be so neat, you mustn't take 'em for a seat. They be so fine that folk must place all over 'em an outer case, And then the cover went as on. It's still to find a loll upon. Ah, gimme me if I were a squire, the settle and the girt would fire.
Carpets, indeed. You couldn't hurt the stone floor with your little dirt.
No.
For what were bought indoors be men, the women soon mopped out again. So we did come from muck and mire and walk in straight afore the fire. But now a man's kept at door at work a pretty while afore he's scraped and rubbed and clean and fit to go in where his wife does it. And then, if he should have a whiff in there, 'twould only breed a myth. He can't smoke there, for smoke won't go within the vutty little flue. Ah, gimme if I were a squire, the settle and the girt would fire. You want another drink? So Christmas has always been a time for indoor games, Brian, hasn't it? What did you used to play?
Those old board games like dominoes and Monopoly. Well, that was, of course, in later years.
Yeah, snakes and ladders.
Yeah, snakes and ladders, very much so. Yeah, Ludo.
Yeah, and next to where we lived, up in Fontvale Magna in North Dorset, we used to go to a little Christmas party every year at this lady's house.
Yeah.
And it was an old thatched place, and the front room had an open fire. And she always had a box of indoor fireworks.
Yeah.
And we liked these things. And one of them was like a kind of paper bag, really, but made of tissue. You lit the bottom of it, and it went up in the air, like a hot air balloon.
Yeah.
And we used to watch this thing going up into the rafters and the thatch up the top there.
Oh, you didn't have a village fire service in those days.
No, the nearest fire engine was a wooden one in Oakford Fitzpaine.
Yeah. I remember the old Christmas parties. I mean, the highlight was musical chairs, wasn't it?
Yes.
They have about 30 chairs out, and then as the music stopped each time they took two away.
Yeah.
And it got more of a scramble, and you slowed walking down, didn't you, as the music slowed down?
Yeah.
And hoping you'd end up with the prettiest girl at the party sat on your lap when it was down to the last two chairs.
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, Barnes very often talks about these parties being boisterous affairs, doesn't he? You know, he talks about romps and...
Well, there was a wonderful letter he wrote about inviting the mummers to come to Cane Rectory to perform in the kitchen. That's right, yeah. And that reminds me, you know, the other thing about Christmas and Barnes is his poem about the Humstrum. Oh, the Humstrum.
Because, you know, that's the only evidence we really have of these old instruments. Which is a kind of homemade fiddle, really.
Yes.
And it looks a bit like a violin, but instead of a wooden bridge, it's got a tin can on it, hasn't it?
Ing-a-ning and ang-a-nang.
That's right, yeah. So now we're going to hear a wonderful reading of the poem by David Strawbridge, again from 1978. So this is the Humstrum.
Why, once at Christmastide, afore the whole year were reckoned out, the Humstrums here did come about, a-sounding up at every door. But now a beau do never scrape a humstrum anywhere all round, and some can't tell a humstrum's shape, and never heard his jingling sound. As ing-a-ning did ring the string, as ang-a-nang the wires did clang. The strings a-tightened like to crack athert the canister's tin side, did reach a-glittering side by side above the humstrum's hollow back. And there the boy wi' bended stick, as strung wi' hair to make a bow, did drive his elbow lightning quick athert the strings from high to low. As ing-a-ning did ring the string, as ang-a-nang the wires did clang. The mother there did stand and hush her child to hear the jingling sound. The merry maid, a-scrubbing round her white-staved pail, did stop her brush. The missus there, for old time's sake, had gifts to gie and smiles to show. A measter too did stand and shake his two broadsides a-chuckling low, while ing-a-ning did ring the string, while ang-a-nang the wires did clang. The players' pockets were a-strout wi' old brown pence a-rottling in. Their swangin' bags did soon begin wi' brocks and scraps to plim well out. The children all did run and poke their heads from hatch or door and shout, a-running back to older folk. Why, here the Humstrums be about, as ing-a-ing did ring the string, as ang-a-ang the wires did clang.
It was a chilly winter's night, frost glittered on the ground, and evening stars were twinkling bright, and from the plain around came no sound, but in the tower the church bell struck the hour. As if that all of human birth had risen to the final day, and soaring from the worn-out earth were called in hurry and dismay far away, and I alone of all mankind were left in loneliness behind. And I alone of all mankind am left in loneliness behind.
That was John Blackmore's beautiful setting of A Winter's Night, one of Barnes's poems in National English.
Yeah, really lovely. And now a poem about Christmas as a time of remembrance, recalling loved ones who have passed on, but who are by no means forgotten, and remain a part of family festive celebrations.
This poem reminds us how precious small tokens and familiar objects could be in the days before photography. Here's Joy Parsons reading Grammer's Shoes.
I just seem to see Grammer she'd used for to show us at Christmas her wedding shoes, and her flat spreading bonnet's a big round a girt pewter dish a turned upside down. When we did all draw near in a cluster to hear the merry wool so, how she used to walk and dance wi' her high-heeled shoes. She'd a gown wi' girt flowers like hollyhocks, and some stockings of granfers, and knit wi' clocks, and a token she kept under lock and key. A small lock of his hair off afore were grey, and her eyes were red, and she shook her head when we all looked at it, and she did use to lock it away wi' her wedding shoes. She could tell us such tales about heavy snows and of rain and of floods when the waters rose all up into the housen and carried away all the bridge wi' a man and his little boy, and of fog and frost and of vocal lost, and of parties at Christmas when she did used for to walk home wi' grandfer in high-heeled shoes. Every Christmas she liked for the bells to ring and to having the singers hear 'em sing the war carol she heard many years agone, while she warmed 'em some cider afore the brawn, and she'd look and smile at our dancing while she did tell our friends now agone did used to really wear in their high-heeled shoes. Now she did like for to deck wi' red hollyberries the window and wool clock's head, and the clavey with boughs of some bright green leaves, and to make toast and ale upon Christmas Eves. But she's now drew grace in a better place, though we'll never forget her, poor soul, nor lose grandfer's token of hair, nor her wedding shoes.
Fill up the cup, put another log on the fire, and settle back for some spine-chilling ghost stories from William Barnes, told here by two wonderful storytellers, Charles Buckler from Penselwood and Brian Caddy from Dorchester. Two Dorset chaps walking unsteadily home from the inn on a moonless night. A ghost.
This is a darkish evening. Be ye afeard of zights? These lanes are haunted, I've heard.
No, I bain't much afeard if folk don't strive to overreach me while they be alive. I don't much think the dead'll have the will to come back here to do me any ill. And I've a been about all night, you know, from candle lighting to the cock to crow, but never met wi' nothing that's enough to be much worse than what I be myself. Though I, like others, have heard folk say, the Gert house is a haunted night and day.
Aye, I'd a mind one winter 'twere as that the farmers' folk could hardly sleep a bed. They heard at night such scufflings and such jumpings, such ugly noises and such rattling thumpings.
Aye, I'd a mind I heard his son, young Sammy, tell how all the chairs did dance and doors did slammy. He stood to it, though some folk wouldn't heed'n. He didn't only hear the ghost, but see'd. And hang me if I hadn't almost a shook to hear and tell what ugly shapes it took. Did sometimes come full 6 feet higher in Whitey's head, wi' eyes like coals of fire, and sometime wi' a face a pale as milk, a smileless lady all a-decked in silk. His hair, he said, did used to stand upright, so stiff's a bunch of rushes with a fright.
And then you know that some of us a see down there in Lane, and over in the mead, a comin' sometimes like a slinking hound, or rolling like a fleece along the ground. And once, when grandfer with his wool grey mare were riding down the lane from Shroton Fair, it rolled so big as a pack of wool across the road just under'n, and lamed his horse.
Aye, did he ever hear? Folks said 'twere true of what befell Jack Hine some years ago. One frosty night, d'ye know, at Christmas tide, Jack and another chap or two besides had been out somewhere up at t'other end of parish, to a neighbour's house to spend a merry hour, and admitted took a cup or two of ale a keeping Christmas up. So I'd a lot 'twere late afore the party had burnt their brawn out. I'd a lot afore they thought of turning out a door 'twere morning. for their friendship then were hearty. Well, close again the footpath at the lead from Higher Parish over Withymead, there's still a holler there, you know. They tried there in former times to make a cattle pit, but gied it up because they couldn't get the water any time to bide there. So when the merry fellers got just over right this lonesome spot, Jack seed a girt big house dog wi' a collar, a-standing down in it there holler. Look there, he said, there's some girt dog a-prowling. I'll just go down and gain a goodish lick or two with this your ground ash stick, and send the shaggy rascal home a-howling. So there he run, and gain a good whack wi' his girt ashen stick athert his back. And all at once his stick split right all down in 4 pieces, and the pieces fled out of his hand all up above his head, and pitched in 4 corners of the ground. And then he felt his hand get all so numb he couldn't feel a finger or a thumb. And after that his arm begun to swell, and in the night abed he found the skin up, peeling off all round. 'Twere near a month afore he got it well.
Well, that were for hitting of him. He should ha' let him alone, you see. 'Twere wicked for him to hitting.
Ah.
Our final poem comes from Phil Humphries, and I know it's one of his favourites. It's the sequel to our first poem, Christmas Invitation, and it seems that 1 or 2 people didn't turn up, despite the promise of a game of blind man's buff. So here's Keeping Up a Christmas, with even more seasonal pranks and games.
And so you didn't come a third to have some fun last night? How worked? For we'd worked wi' all our might to scour the iron things up bright, and brushed and scrubbed the house all drew, and brought in for a brand a plot o' wood so big's an up and stock, and hung a bough of mistletoe, and axed a merry friend or two to keeping up a Christmas. And there were old and young, and Bill soon after dark stalked up for a mill, and when he were a-coming near, he whistled loud for me to hear. Then round my head my frock I rolled, and stood in orchard like a post to make him think I were a ghost. But he were up to it, and did scold to find me standing in the cold, a-keeping up a Christmas. We played at forfeits, and we spun the trench around and made such fun, and had a game of dree-card loo, and then begun to hunt the shoe. And all the wold folk sitting near and chatting round the fireplace did smile in one another's face, and shake right hands wi' hearty cheer, and let their left hand spill their beer, a-keeping up a Christmas.
Merry Christmas, one and all, and our thanks to all our readers and musicians. Charles Butler, Joy Parsons, John Blackmore, Sue Worth, Phil Humphries, Rod Drew and Barbara Whillock.
And thanks once again to Andy Worth and Keep 106 Community Radio for recording the programme, and to Mark North for adding the lovely visual accompaniment for the programme online. Cool. Look at the time. We must be getting on. Get that turkey in the oven, Brian.
One more carol before we go.
Righto.
Here we come a-wassailing among the leaves so green. Here we come a-wandering so fair to be seen. Love and joy come to you, and to you your wassail too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year. We are not daily beggars that beg from door to door, but we are neighbours' children who you have seen before. Love and joy come to you, and to you your wassail too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year. We have got a little purse of stretching leather skin, We want a little of your money to lie it well within. Love and joy come to you, and to you also too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year. God bless the master of this house, likewise the mistress too, and all the little children who round the table go. Love and joy come to you, and to you also too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year.